Hello everyone and welcome to Clarity 16.0.2 Supportability and Feature Training. I am Vib Mehrotra, and in this module we will be covering the to-dos and the new checklist. So as part of this release, we are enhancing the risk issues and changes to allow capturing of to-dos. We are also introducing checklist within Clarity. It's a new concept that you will be able to see across different parts of the application. You will be able to define individual checklist and invite others to come collaborate on that checklist. The users will also have the ability to view to-dos and checklist using Smartlist. Customers have been using to-dos within tasks and investment for a few releases now and have contacted the product management team asking to enhance that functionality to also be available within risk issues and changes. In addition, in today's agile work management, customers have asked for ways to manage their ad hoc activities that doesn't really form within a predefined work that they need to do, but it's just an ad hoc checklist type of item that they want to track within either the investment or just in general within Clarity itself. Now you would have that capability within Clarity. So first, let's begin with the to-dos and the risk issues and changes. So starting 16.0.2, customers will now see the ability to create to-dos within the investments risk issues and changes. They will be able to create the to-dos in the new tab that is available in the detailed flyout of risk issues and changes. The end user will be able to create the to-dos very similar to how they do that in the other parts of the application, and by clicking on the expand in the detail flyout, the pop-up modal will show all the to-dos in the full grid layout. As part of this release, we are also enhancing the to-do to add additional attributes. There are 3 new attributes that will be available throughout the Clarity wherever to-dos are either previously already available as well as in the new parts where to-do is going to be made available. The 3 attributes that are going to be added are blocked, which is a checkbox indicating that the specific to-do is blocked. Blocked reason, which would be a string that will accept up to 720 characters. And the third is link, which is a URL field that will allow the user to populate a URL value. Again, these 3 attributes will be available in the to-dos across Clarity. The to-do My Workspace has also been enhanced to now show the to-dos created inside of risk issues and changes. There will be 3 new tabs that the end user can see, one for risk, one for issues, and the last one for changes. And clicking on those tabs, they can see the to-dos that are specific to those sub-objects. The to-do data can be edited and or deleted in these grids. The new to-do, however, will need to be created within the investment itself. There is an implicit filter that will only show the to-dos that are active and not from a template in these grids. The ability to visualize the data using widgets is also available in here, and we do support bulk editing of data within this workspace. The end user can also use the current user smart filter to trim the data down to only the to-dos that they are the owner of. Starting 16.0.2, we are introducing the checklist, which is a capability to manage ad hoc work in the form of to-dos and be able to collaborate with others. This checklist is going to be available either in the My Workspace or within Investments. This would be an easy way to visualize the work that needs to be done with its due date and the collaborators that will be working on it, and an easy way to flag a to-do that is completed by simply just checking on it. So let's understand how the different components of this checklist work within the My Workspace. So starting the My Workspace, end users that have been granted the access right will see the new menu link for My Workspace link. Clicking on it, they would see the My Workspace, where on the top left all the predefined checklist that the end user has either created or is a collaborator will be listed right here. The user, if they have the appropriate access right, can click on the plus icon and create a new checklist. And when the checklist is created, they can easily define to-dos within that checklist by clicking on the new to-dos. The to-dos will be listed top to bottom in the order that they were created, and the end user can either populate the to-do date as well as assign an owner for that to-do. If an owner is assigned, the avatar for that owner will be displayed. The end user also has additional actions that they can perform against this checklist, such as they can rename the checklist, they can make a copy of that checklist, they can just delete it or set a due date. There is the share button that the end user can click on to share the checklist with others. We will cover the details of how sharing will work along with the details of how the access rights will work later in this presentation. As to-dos are marked as complete, those to-dos are moved at the bottom of the list and will be under the completed section. Again, the checklists that are the actions that are available to the checklist is ability to share the checklist with others, renaming the checklist, copy a checklist, delete a checklist, and set a due date for that checklist. The creation flow for a checklist is clicking on the plus button under the My Workspace along where the checklist is. When you click on the plus button, the Create Checklist modal pops up where the end user can populate the name of the checklist, and once the name is populated, the Create button is enabled and they can click on the Create button to have the checklist completed. At that point, the end user can click on the new to-dos to start creating to-dos within that checklist. As the end user creates the to-do, the new to-do menu link will be listed right below where they can continue to add new to-dos. The end user can also create new to-dos by just typing the name of the to-do, and then when they hit enter, the next to-do is automatically created. Hovering over a to-do, the actions will then become visible that they can perform against a to-do. On the extreme right will be the three-dotted action link that they can click on to see that there are 3 actions they can perform using the action menu, and we will cover this more in detail. The end user can drag and reorder any of the to-dos. So drag and drop to reorder the to-dos is supported. Hovering over and there is a small calendar that gets displayed. As you can see right here that there is a small calendar icon getting displayed right next to the to-dos. Clicking on that will allow the end user to populate a to-do due date. And hovering over and clicking on the icon for owner will allow the user to define an owner for that specific to-do. Let's cover the actions that can be performed against the to-do. So as mentioned, when you click on the action menu, the 3 actions will then be available to be performed. The first is add link. Clicking on that will take the end user to a pop-up modal where they can populate the URL that they want to assign to that to-do. Once this URL is being populated, the end user can see the hyperlink with the link icon right next to the to-do itself. The end user can also mark a specific to-do as blocked. And when they click on the blocked, there are two clear visual indicators next to the to-do that that specific to-do is blocked. The first is the block icon that is listed right next to the to-do. And at this point, this to-do cannot be marked as completed because it is blocked. And the second is the blocked in red bold letters with an area to populate a description as to why the specific to-do is blocked. If the user wants to mark this as complete, they would have to unblock that to-do before marking as complete. The third action is just the ability to delete a specific to-do, and selecting that will delete the to-do. If the end user checks the box right next to the to-do, then that to-do will be automatically flagged as completed, and the to-do will then move towards the bottom of that checklist under the completed section. End user can also share a checklist with others within Clarity. The checklist can be shared with one or multiple end users. The checklist can be shared with only Clarity defined users. So users that have been defined and are active in Clarity, they are the one that the checklist can be shared with. Collaborator names can be searched either by their full name or by an email address. Users with whom the checklist is shared are added to that checklist as collaborators, and only owner can share a checklist with others or remove a collaborators. A collaborator cannot add or remove, but a collaborator can see who else is collaborating within that checklist. The owner and collaborator avatar is displayed next to the share button along with the total count indicating how many people are collaborating within this specific checklist. Checklist is also available within Investments as a module. This module is available in the following investment: projects, ideas, and custom investment types. Having the checklist module added to the investment allows the end user to create checklist within the specific investment. Checklists defined in templates are also copied when creating a new investment from template, and the dates for the to-do are automatically adjusted based on the template and the new project dates. Appropriate access rights are still needed to manage the checklist. So just by creating a checklist within the investment or having the module within the investment does not grant everybody the access right. The appropriate access rights still need to be defined to the end users. Define to-dos within the checklist along with the to-do owner, due date, and link. So that functionality that we just saw in the checklist in the My Workspace, the same functionality is also available with the checklist within the investment, which is the ability to define a to-do owner, the due date, and link. Managing the checklist and the to-do works the same as My Workspace, and the checklist created in the investments are also displayed under My Workspace. So let's talk about some of the access rights, because this is a new functionality, so it is important to understand how the access rights will work to leverage this new functionality. So upon upgrade, the end users will see new access rights that are available that can be assigned. The first one is the My Workspace Navigate. This is the access right that will need to be granted to the end user to see the menu link to access the My Workspace within the modern UX. However, just giving that right does not allow them to create checklists. For that, you will have to assign the access right checklist-create. This allows the end user to create checklist, and the checklist owner, right, gets automatically assigned to the user that creates their own checklist, and it'll allow the user to edit, view, and delete their particular checklist. And checklist collaborator allows the user to view a particular checklist. This gets automatically assigned. There is also a new security group that is going to be seeded into Clarity. So upon upgrade, the end users will see a new user group called checklist sharing. This would be a system defined group that cannot be deleted. However, the security rights within this group can be modified by the administrators. Any user with whom a specific checklist is shared will automatically be added to this user group. This user group provides the capability to define which access rights should be automatically given to an end user. So essentially, it allows the administrators to control that when a checklist is shared, what all different access rights should that collaborator get upon being shared the checklist with. By default, out of the box, you will see the following access rights already included in this checklist sharing group, which is the checklist create, my workspace navigate, resource view, to do create, to do edit, to do delete, and to do view. Admins can change these rights, but we recommend leaving them as is because this will allow the person with whom the checklist is being shared to be able to manage the to-dos within those checklists. So let's discuss a little bit about the flow of the access right assignments. What I'm going to talk about is what happens if only selected rights are granted to the end user. This is important to understand because as we talked that the access rights are automatically assigned to the end users upon sharing checklist. What happens if the administrator removes some of these rights? What will be then available to the end user? The users by default will need My Workspace Navigate right to even see the checklist menu. If they don't have this access right, they will not see the checklist menu. They will not be able to go to My Workspace to see all the checklists that are either created across the different investments or the checklists that are shared with them. The checklist create right allows the end user to create a checklist, and if an end user only has this right along with My Workspace, then they can come into My Workspace, create a new checklist, set its due date, copy that checklist, even delete that checklist, rename the checklist, but they cannot create any to-dos inside of that checklist. If the end user is granted the to-do create all right along with the first two rights, then they will be able to create the to-dos within the checklist, and this allows the end user to create but not edit or delete the to-dos. The to-do edit right will allow the users to edit those to-dos but not delete, and then the delete right will allow them to delete the to-dos. So each one of these rights would be needed if you want to grant access to an end user to be a collaborator to edit, delete, and create to-dos within the checklist. Just continuing on, discussing a little bit about the collaborator access flow. When sharing a checklist with collaborator, the following will automatically happen. One, they will automatically be added to the new system-defined group called checklist sharing. The collaborator will also get the global access right to all the rights that are defined in the checklist sharing group. Collaborators can then now do the following. They can edit the to-dos within the shared checklist, view collaborators in that checklist, copy a checklist, and create their own checklist. Only the checklist owner and collaborators can see their checklist. Other users will not see any other checklist that might have been created in the system. Adding a user as an owner to the to-do does not automatically grant them access right to see a to-do. They have to be shared, or the checklist has to be shared with the other owners. Along with the checklist, we are also introducing Smartlist. A Smartlist is an easy way to quickly see the to-dos based on different conditions. Smartlist is available inside of My Workspace. By default, every user will get a default smart list called My To-Dos. This is a smart list that will show the to-dos that the user is assigned as the owner. Again, they will only see this if they have the access right to navigate to My Workspace. User can create their own smart list or edit any existing smart list. The smart lists are specific to the end users who's creating and viewing or who's logged into Clarity, and smart lists cannot be shared with others. Users can change the smart list display order by either date, name, or owner. And we'll cover this when we go over the demo. The smart list display order, which is right here on top, can easily be changed, and there are three options possible. The first is the date. Selecting the date will display the to-do in the following order. Any to-dos that are overdue will be listed first on top, followed by any to-dos that are due in the next 7 days, and then the rest of the to-dos listed underneath that. So an easy way to see the to-dos that are assigned to the person that is logged in. The next sorting order is the name, in which case all the to-dos will be listed based on their names. And the last is by owner, in which case all the to-dos will be listed based on the different owners that have to-dos. Building a smart list is straightforward, where the smart list that is listed underneath the checklist, there is a plus icon right next to it. The end user can click on the plus right, which will then open up a pop-up very similar to widgets, where they can populate the name, and then they can define the condition or the filter criteria that should be used to display the to-dos. Once populated, the end user can click on create, and the new smart list will then be added in the smart list section under My Workspace. Clicking on that smart list will then display the data based on the smart list condition. And the end user can also see that if there are any to-dos that are coming from investments or the sub-objects or different checklists, then there is a link right next to those to-dos that indicates where that to-do is coming from. Clicking on that specific link will navigate the user to either that specific checklist or the specific investment or the specific sub-object where the to-do has been defined. The icons that are listed next to the to-do parent or the link next to that to-do will be a clear indicator as to where the to-do is defined. In this case, if you see a check mark icon, you will see that this is a task to-do, or the to-do that is defined within a task of an investment. This icon will indicate that this is a My Workspace checklist to-do. The investment checklist icon, the risk icon, the issues, the changes, investment to-do on a project, investment to-do on an idea, and then the investment to-do in the custom investment type. These icons, if you look carefully, are very similar to the same icons used to navigate to those specific object types. So it's a clear indicator and a clear link as to where the to-do is defined within that checklist or within the smart list when you are viewing those to-dos. In order to filter the data specific to the end user needs, we are also providing 6 additional filter attributes. These 6 attributes will allow the end user to filter the to-do down based on either the parent of the to-do or the grandparent of the to-do. For example, a to-do created within risk will have the parent as the risk object and the grandparent as the project object. In that case, the 6 filters that are available would allow the end user to either use the grandparent ID, grandparent name, or the grandparent type. Similarly, they can filter on the parent ID, parent name, and then the parent type itself. The grandparent and parent type is a dynamic filter that will only list the objects that have to-dos created under it, which means if I, in my system, do not have any to-dos created under the issues, then the issues object will not be listed under the parent type lookup. But as soon as I create a to-do within issues subobject, then that issue subobject will automatically be listed under the parent type. All right, with that, let's see all these new functionality in action. So to see this new functionality, I am going to go into the Clarity 16.0.2, and the first place I'm going to begin is to see the to-dos within risk issues and changes. To see that, I'm going to go into my projects, and I'm going to go into a specific project where to-dos have been defined under risk issues and changes. I'm going to go into web application enhancement, and in here I'm going to go into my risk object, and by selecting a specific one, you can see in the detail flyout there is a tab called to-dos, and inside of that I have some predefined to-dos. This functionality works very similar to how to-dos are managed within task. So it is available as a tab. I can click on the expand and it'll open up as the in the pop-up modal where I can see all the additional data. By clicking on columns, I can see all the attributes that are available, including the new attributes, which is blocked, blocked reason, and link, the 3 new attributes that are available to me. Managing these is very similar to how it is done in tasks, where I can click on the plus button to create a new to-do. I can populate a value. I can define an owner, and then I can define a due date. If a specific to-do is blocked, I can easily check on it and it'll be blocked, and I can then populate a blocked reason. Defining the link is similar to how the link icon or the URL icon attribute works, where I can populate the URL as I need to. I have all the functionalities similar to the other pop-up modal, where I can define the layout, I can save it in a view, I can pre-filter it, as well as I can export this data to CSV. The same functionality is there for issues and changes. I'm not going to cover that in the demo in the interest of time, but I'm going to go next into the to-do workspace to show you that now I have the 3 additional tabs where I can see risk issues and changes across the investment. Clicking on the risk, I can see all the risks, the to-dos within the different risk, along with the widgets to visualize my data itself. Clicking on the columns, I can see all the different types of columns that are available. It allows me to see the data across my investment, my parent, and the to-do itself. In this case, you're seeing some of these repeated. That's because that's an existing functionality where, based on how my columns are defined, you would see the columns repeat itself. So I can see the data across different investments, which includes my the investment, which is the grandparent, my parent is the risk, and then the to-do itself. I can also edit the to-do values from here. So if I wanted to change the owner from right here, I can. I can change the date, but I can only change the to-do information. I cannot change my parent or grandparent information from here. Next, let's go into the modern UX and let's go into the blueprints to see that now we have the new module available within the project's idea and custom investment type. For my demo purpose, I'm going to show this only for the project. So right here, if I go into my project blueprint, go into modules, I can see the new module, which is the checklist module that is available for me. It's adding this as simple as drag and drop, where I can just drag it and then move it around in any order that I would want to use for managing my checklist. I can just drag it and move it after my to-dos, or I can move it ahead of my task. And I'll go ahead and then just publish this. So now the checklist is available to me within investment itself. To see the checklist within the investment, let's go into a specific investment, and I'm going to go into my project where I have predefined some of my checklists. So I'm going to go into incident response playbook. Going in here, as you saw that we have the second module as checklist, I can go in, and in there I can see the checklist that might have been predefined for me. For this example, let's look at the different sections of the checklist within the investment. So first, on the top left, you can see all the checklists that are created within the investment listed out here. I have the option to create a new checklist, and if I have several checklists, I can easily search for a specific one just by typing, and I can then see the checklists that are there. Right clicking on the checklist, I can see all the to-dos that have been defined within the checklist itself, and I can see the avatars for the owner of the to-dos. I can see the due date for the to-dos, and if there were any links defined, then I would see the links itself. Any to-dos that are completed are listed at the bottom of my to-do list. The actions that we discussed that are available are listed right here. I can rename it my checklist, I can copy my checklist, I can delete or set a due date itself. So let's create a new checklist right here, and let's just, for discussion's sake, we are going to create a new checklist to manage the daily meeting guidelines. Clicking on the plus opened up the create modal. I can populate the date and click on create, and now I have a new checklist created, which is completely empty. To create to-dos inside of it, all I have to do is click on the new to-do, and I'm going to populate some data. And to show how easy it is to create to-dos, I'll create one and then I'll hit on the enter key. Hitting on the enter key will automatically create the next to-do in line. So let's see that in action. And I'm just populating some, easily creating the to-dos within my checklist. So again, hitting on the enter automatically creates my to-dos. Once the to-do is created, I have the option to just easily drag and reorder them if I want to. I can hover over, and as soon as I hover over, you can see on the right of the same line, I can see the values that are actions that I can perform against it, such as I can click on the set due date and assign a date. I can hover over the assign owner icon and I can easily assign an owner, and as soon as I assign an owner, the avatar for that specific owner is displayed. Or I can go into the action and perform any one of the three actions, such as add a link. Clicking on that opens up the editing of the link modal. I can populate a URL, and once done so, I can easily see that there is a link tied to this to-do, and hovering over it shows me the actual link itself, and I can click on this link, which will then take me to that specific page. The same actions I can perform against the checklist, which is renaming it. So I can change this to the capital. I can assign a due date for my checklist itself. So if I think this is due by June 10th, I can assign that value, and the due date is automatically displayed. Any date that has passed for the checklist will automatically turn to red as a visual indicator that this due date is being passed and this checklist is overdue. The same is true for the due date for a to-do. So let's change this due date by again clicking on it to a date in the past, such as April 1st. You can see that it is now red in color because this due date is in the past for the to-do, and the to-do is not being completed. If I complete this, the to-do then moves to the bottom of the checklist under the completed section, and the date is now back into the normal color, indicating that the work is complete. Next, before I talk about sharing, I'm going to go into the Studio Classic to look at the new security group. So in the Classic UI Studio, I'm under the Groups section, and right there you can see there is a new group that is seeded into Clarity called Checklist Sharing. I can click on that. I can see the global rights that are assigned to it, and out of the box, these are all the rights, as we discussed in the presentation, that are assigned or added to this group. I can click on resources, and I can see that these are the current resources that are part of this group. I can obviously remove any one of them if I choose to do so. But let's see how the group is automatically assigned to a user when a checklist is shared with them. So to see that in action, I'm going to go back to my investment, and in here again the checklist that I was creating and managing, I can now click on the share button, and the pop-up modal displays, which it displays me as the owner. And to add a new collaborator, all I have to do is search for them in the search list. So I can search for just by typing their name, and you can see it is searching based on the user's full name or their email address. So by typing BHA, the 2 came up because that appears either as Rakesh Bhatt's name or it appears in my email address. So I'm going to go ahead and assign this to Rakesh, and let's also assign it to Ashley. By selecting both of them, their name and their email address along with their avatar are displayed for a clear visual indicator as to who I have added to my checklist. So there should not be any confusion as to who is included in my checklist. I can see that these two are collaborators, and if I choose that maybe I don't want somebody to be a collaborator, then I can click on the action next to the name and then just easily remove them. So I'll leave Ashley and Rakesh added. I'm going to click on done. Now next to my checklist name, you see the 3 users avatar being displayed and a number telling me that there are 3 collaborators in for this checklist. I did not grant any specific rights to these users, so as now I should be able to go in as an administrator. I'm going to go back to my studio, the Classic UI Studio under the groups, and I'm going to look at the checklist sharing group. When I refresh this page, now I see that Rakesh Bhatt and Ashley have automatically been added to this group. So they are now automatically being granted these global access rights to create checklists, My Workspace, Navigate, and the to-dos. All right. Next, I'm going to go into the project grid, and let's look at a project template where we have predefined the checklist itself. So I'm going to look at an existing template, which is the new software implementation. In here, if I go inside of the checklist, there is a checklist that is defined called RFP process with several of to-dos and due dates for this template itself. So what I want to show next is that if I create a new project using this template, then it will automatically copy the to-dos and adjust the due dates based on the new project date. So let's see that in action. Let's go back in here. Let's click create a new from template. I'm going to pick the new software implementation. I'm going to give it a name, which is going to be the new online shopping management, and I'm going to set the start date for this to be in August. This way we should easily see that the to-dos in the template were in May, and now I should see the to-dos in August. And the rest of the information is all popular. I can click on create, and it should create the, oh, I did not set the end date. Should go ahead and set that end date to be after my start date. So that's just going to be the end of September. Let's now click on create. By doing so, it will create my template and copy my checklist that was inside of the template. So the new project is created. Let's go straight into the checklist. And you can see now that the dates for my checklist is, or for the to-dos inside of my checklist are in August. All right, next, let's go into the My Workspace area. So again, if I have the access right, then I can see the My Workspace. In this workspace, as discussed, on the top left, you see all the checklist where either I am the owner or the checklist is shared with me. So you would see all of those listed right here. You would also right away see the checklist due date, so I can see when each one of these checklists are due. I have the option to search, it's very similar to the investment checklist. I have the option to create new checklist. Clicking on a specific checklist shows me all the to-dos inside of it. You would also notice that the checklist that I just created, the daily meeting guidelines, is also listed right here. So by clicking on it, I can see the to-dos that I just created inside my checklist, and I have a clear visual indicator that this checklist was created inside the project incident response playbook. So hovering over it tells me that this is a project along with the name, and I can click on it to navigate to the specific project checklist. So clicking on it brings me directly to this checklist where I can see the same information, and I can then navigate back to my checklist in the My Workspace. Also notice the icon. This is exactly the same icon for the project grid. So it's a clear connection that this checklist is inside of the project. So you have a clear visual indicator. Again, all the actions that I could perform in the checklist is there, where I can set the the due date, delete it, copy it, rename it, or I can share it from here. I can see the share avatars. The dates can be set for each one of the to-dos. I can mark anything to do completed. I can drag and drop them as I need to. All of those functionalities are available to me here. If I had created a checklist within my workspace itself, so not a checklist inside of the investment, but a checklist within the workspace, those are also listed right here. And let's look at the conference plan that I have created a checklist. This is I'm going to attend a conference, and this is just my quick to-dos of things I need to do in order to attend my checklist. The very first is obviously I need to get the approvals, then I to fly for my conference, I need to buy the conference ticket, reserve my hotel, and so on. So the ones that I have defined, and out of those, the ones that I have completed are listed all right here. So this is just a clear ad hoc stuff that I have added. I've assigned myself as the owner, and some of the ones in regards to buying, I've added Joyce as the owner for those. But as you can see, I have also blocked a specific to-do. And if you remember, the way to block a to-do is you go into the action and you would click on the blocked, or if it is already blocked, you can click on the unblocked to unblock it. So with this clear visual indicator, I can see that the booking of a flight is blocked, and I have a description that can easily be populated that indicates that the flight fares have gone up, and because of that I need to get a new approval. Until I do that, I cannot book my flight. Unblocking a to-do can be done either from the action or by just clicking on the unblock, and now booking of the flight is no longer blocked. However, if I realize that doing so was an accident and I would be worried that my description could be lost, well, that is not the case, because I can go back and block this again, and my description is automatically retained. So my description is there, and booking of the flight is blocked again. All right. The next, if I was to mark something as complete, I can easily do so by just checking on the checkbox, and as I did that, it automatically moved that to do within my completed section. So it is now under the completed section. To populate a link, it's just as simple as add a link, and I can provide the link to the actual presentation that I might have created for this conference itself. Next, let's look at the area where I organize my to-dos, which is the Smartlist. So Smartlist by default is only available when you come into My Workspace. This is not available inside of the investments. By default, every user that comes here will see My To-Dos as the Smartlist predefined for them. And if I click on that, I can see all the to-dos that I am the owner for. By default, it is also sorted by date, and you can see anything that is overdue, which is the booking of the flight, is overdue. The next 7 days, only one to-do is coming up, and then there are several to-dos that are due in the future. The link right next to or in the same line as the to-do name is the indicator as to where these to-dos have been defined. The icon, if you remember from the presentation, this icon is the same for the checklist, so I know that this is a checklist or a to-do within the checklist itself. If I scroll down and if I have any projects or investment related to-dos, then those will be listed with the name right next to, with the link right next to it. I can also create my own checklist, and in this case I've created two additional checklists. The first is just any ad hoc work. That means it's not just my to-dos, but to-dos that might be assigned to others. So if I click on that, I can now see all the to-dos that are either overdue or due in the next 7 days or later. Again, that's the default sorting. I can see the link as to where this to-do is coming from, and if I want, I can click on that. It'll navigate me to that specific checklist, and then I can come back to my Smartlist to see the to-dos again. Again, the icons next to it or hovering over tells me the same information, and if there's any link that has been defined for my to-do, then hovering over that will take me, will show me the link, and clicking on it will then navigate or open that link up in a new tab. Similarly, I've defined another smart list, which is to show me the to-dos that are due in the next 2 weeks. And here I can see all the to-dos, and these are investment related. Again, look at the icon. This is the same for the project. So this to-do is defined in a project called security enhancement. This is a to-do within a task because it has the task icon right next to it, and again, hovering over it tells me that it's a task called initiated phase under the project called printed marketing. So the task name and the project name are all listed right here, and this is the indicator that this is the parent and this is the grandparent, which is the printed marketing. To define or create a new smart list is as simple as clicking on the plus button, and let's say if I want to create a new smart list to right away visualize which all to-dos are blocked. So I'm going to do that by creating on my blocked work. I'm going to define the condition as blocked is yes, and the owner is the logged in user, which would be myself. So either I can type in my name or I could just say current user, which will then automatically be me. Once I've defined the condition, I can create my smart list. The smart list is created, and I can right away see that there are 2 to-dos that are blocked. The first one is the booking of the flight. I can see why it is blocked, and the second is the collecting of some guidelines, and that is also blocked because I do not have access to the application or the system where I can download that information. So it's a clear indicator of the information I want to see. If I go back to the ad hoc work again, let me show you the different sorting. So in this case, again, by default, you will always see that the to-dos are sorted by date. However, hovering over it, you can change the sorting to either the name of the to-do. So now all the to-dos are listed alphabetically along with the rest of the same information. Or you can see based on the owner, and now all the to-dos are organized based on the owner, sorted by the owner's last name. And I have the option to edit any specific smart list by just clicking on the action and clicking on edit, and I can see that I'm trying to only look for the ad hoc work by setting the parent type as checklist. So this is where I can see the 6 different options or attributes that are available for me to find: the grandparent ID, the grandparent name, grandparent type, or the parent ID, name, and type. The parent type itself, so these are the list of all the parents that have to-dos created inside of it. Notice that in this list, change is not listed anywhere, even though change subobject inside of an investment also supports to-do. And that is because I have not created a to-do inside of change. If I create a to-do inside of a change, then that will automatically get listed right here in this filter. And this concludes our section. Thank you everyone for listening.